You could win $1,000 in free gasoline from Exxon and Mobil just by telling us what fuels you and getting your friends to vote for your entry. It's the Exxon and Mobil What Fuels You contest. Rules and details at Exxon.com and Mobil.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. What we have for you today, all of our thoughts coming out of the NFL Combine, including goal-ix breakdown of both quarterbacks, plus the perspective of Chad Pennington, who was on the field, and Todd McShay from Indy. We launch a committee against the Hack-a-Shack or Hack-a-DeAndre. Dan Le Batard has his thoughts, and a roller coaster weekend for the Heat and the Oscars.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
This morning is a morning to be passing out congratulations. Congratulations, Joey Logano. Congratulations, Birdman. Congratulations, fight fans. We're going to get the fight we wanted, albeit 5 years too late. Congratulations, Miracle on Ice. 35 years old yesterday. They gathered in Lake Placid. And congratulations, Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, who will be the top two picks in the NFL draft after impressive performances at the Combine in Indianapolis, attended by the one, the only, Michael Lewis Kohler.
Yeah, well, we were in the same city, the wife and I, but not actually at the Combine.
Well, you're tweeting from Indianapolis. I assumed you were at the Combine.
We were not. Sunday, my wife and I went there from Phoenix. We were actually right next to it at the convention center. There were 600 youth and high school sports directors and coaches there for USA Football. You know, Chris does that for USA Football.
Sure.
Heads up. So we went and spoke to them. Oliver Luck was there as well, speaking to them. Tony Dungy spoke there as well. So that's where we were. And as we drove to the airport and drove past Lucas Oil and looked at the Combine, we said, yeah, we've never been in there for a Combine. We're just going to keep on driving by.
So here, my entire plan, we really probably should have sat down and powwowed this. Because here I was all prepared to get your eyewitness accounts, first-person accounts, of the events at the Combine that everyone else was just busy watching on TV.
I did watch it all on TV like everybody else to break it down, but sorry, I was not in the building.
All right. Well, perhaps you could, a little bit later, you can give us an account of the 800 children that you watched play football. But beyond that, okay. Mariota, Winston, go.
Oh, well, listen, it was it's amazing. I saw all these articles after Winston, impressed in this, Mariota impressed in that. You know what happened in that Combine? Absolutely everything I thought was going to happen. Everything. Marcus Mariota was going to impress everybody with his interview skills, with what a guy, that he is. That Jameis Winston was going to put a lot of people at ease with his interviews. They said football talk for him. His football IQ is off the charts. They were satisfied with his answers about, the allegations against him, in the sexual assault, obviously the most serious of situations. Then, the crab legs and the other situations he were in. And he said, I heard him say, I wasn't coached at all. I just spoke how I wanted to speak. I don't know if I completely buy that, quite honestly, because all these guys get coached up into these situations. But I knew he was going to say and come across as a credible guy, and I knew people were going to like him, just like they did Mariota. So off the field, there was nothing that didn't happen that I didn't think was going to happen.
Winston.
It surprised me at first, but after just learning from my mistakes and moving forward, I just got used to it. I realized that I'm not that guy anymore. I'm Jameis Winston, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
So he says he's a championship quarterback.
He is. And then you get on the field, and I exactly what I thought would happen. What happened? Jameis Winston is a natural. I mean, he's just a natural thrower. And, it was interesting in watching, and we talk about this at times, about leadership skills. And there are different ways to lead. And we bring up people. There's the fiery leader. There's the talkative leader. There's the quiet leader. Mariota, definitely a quiet leader who commands an offense and leads more by his example of our team is struggling and I'm going to help this team out of it, whether, mostly by running the ball or making a big play. He's not a big talker. Jameis Winston, you could see, was all over the field, high-fiving receivers, talking and kind of being himself. This is kind of how he is. So he's that vocal, kind of in your face, always smiling, high-fiving people. And Mariota's a little more quiet, both leaders in different ways.
More Winston?
I believe I accomplished what I need to do because, I just came here trying to be real, be as genuine as possible. And, real, recognize real. So if you're talking to a grown man and you just being straight up front with him, accepting the past, but telling you just trying to earn his trust, you can't do nothing but respect that. I wasn't trying to put on no show or anything. I didn't even get coached up like I should have got coached up. I took responsibility for everything, and I just was real.
That's right. I said when he said he didn't get coached up, I would imagine he got coached up some, but he said he got asked about everything, obviously multiple times, because teams can have 15 minutes with the players in the situation at the combine, and he said he answered everything multiple times. And there were a lot of people that felt good about his answers, which I thought was going to happen. Everybody loved Mariota, which I thought was going to happen. He got on the field, and exactly what happened I thought was going to happen. Winston looked comfortable. Mariota was doing the 5-step drops. There are just subtle differences. You could tell he's not as used to that, but something he absolutely can learn to do. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Mariota on footwork.
Yeah, it's something that I've been able to work on the last month, and I've been blessed to have a good quarterback coach, and just been harping it and working as much as I can, and it's still an ongoing process for me. It does change a little bit when you get all 11 guys on the field, but just learning the fundamentals, and I thought I did okay today.
So before they even got to the throwing, they did all the other drills. Mariota runs the 4.540, and Jameis Winston is probably happy he clocked just under 5. Right. He just broke a 5. Mariota's jumping 35 in the vert. Jameis Winston's jumping 28. All the things we knew were going to happen happened. And you know what all that stuff means? Nothing. It means nothing because one is an excellent athlete who used his legs to do a lot of damage in college. The other is credible to move in the pocket, escape the rush, and do something if he has to with his legs. But he is going to carve you up with his arm, and as was put on the broadcast, and I agree with, has no conscience throwing the football. He's going to throw the football, which means he's going to throw some interceptions, but he's going to try and get it in there. So in the throwing, after they both threw, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind nothing has changed. Jameis Winston will be the number 1 pick in this draft. And what you said, I think, is probably going to happen. Mariota is going to impress enough to where I don't know whether it's Tennessee at 2 or they trade to someone jumping up is going to want to take Mariota. Because, listen, he threw well. I thought Jameis Winston threw better, a bit better. But Mariota threw well, and he's one of those guys that you're going to say, man, we can coach him. He wasn't asked to do that in college, so what we ask him to do in the NFL, we feel he's going to be able to do. And we'll see whether he can or not. That then is going to be up to him. But I do think he's going to impress enough, and we talked about this, to not be there at number 6 when the Jets pick, but to a team will want him earlier than that, whether it's Tennessee just taking him at 2, or as I said, a team trading up. But in my mind, nothing has changed. I saw one mock draft where they had Mariota going first and Jameis Winston going 10 to the Rams. I almost spit out my coffee when I was drinking it and looked at that. Jameis Winston is going to be the top pick in this draft. I think that case, I think, is quite honestly going to be closed. I think at this combine, the person that had to prove more was Marcus Mariota, especially on the field, because all you could really do with Jameis is talk to him off the field and get a vibe for, and there are those that don't like him that are going to say he's just going to say whatever is the right thing to say. And you know what? You're right. Now, whether he's sincere about it or not, I thought he did say the right thing there as well. He said, my actions have to prove that. I am going to be picked somewhere. I'm going to be the face of a franchise. He's right. And he said, my actions have to then prove that. He's right. So we're going to have to wait and see what his actions are, and I think they'll be in Tampa Bay to see if he's going to live up to what he said. Mariota had to prove more with the 5-step drop going from under center, which I think he did 5 times last year, if that. And he had to prove that he could take the 5-step drop, throw right from the pocket, try and throw the timing routes, which I think he did a pretty good job of, which I think is going to push him to that number 2 pick. We'll get into the other guys, the Leonard Williams, the D linemen, and other guys, some of the linebackers and edge rushers, what they did. But we know it's about the quarterbacks. And the biggest question was the quarterback going to go 1.6, 1.10, or 1.2? And if you ask me after that weekend, what am I leaning to? I'm leaning to 1-2.
I would even go further than that. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now, that's Progressive. What I'll say is this, that there are obviously there are still weeks and weeks and months until the draft. So something unforeseeable could happen, something in the medical, some event could take place.
Well, there was the shoulder thing supposedly with Winston. Right. He said it was no issue at all. You couldn't tell it at all throwing the ball. So I think that was alleviated.
In the absence of either of those, with the value that is placed on the quarterback position right now, I will bet you or anyone anything they want that by the time the third pick in the draft is made, both quarterbacks are gone. So I am not as sure as you are that Winston will go 1 and Mariota will go 2.
I'm as locked on that as can be.
I am not, and the reason is for some of the other factors. Lovie Smith can say that the off-the-field stuff is not a concern, but I don't believe that. And I don't believe that anyone is not at all concerned about that and will give no thought to that, and that as the process goes on, Mariota could impress people enough, and by people at this point, we're talking about the Glazers, which is the family that owns the Buccaneers, and we're talking about Lovey, and we're talking about their offensive coaching staff, that they might say 2 years down the road, because you're not drafting these two guys for next year. Granted, they're going to play next year.
Right.
But if you're drafting a quarterback, number 1 or number 2, you're thinking this is my quarterback for a decade.
For a decade, absolutely.
So they may think, he may be able to convince them that 2 or 3 years down the road, he could be just as good, and it's a safer pick. So my prediction, if I had to bet on it, I would bet Winston.
Right.
I don't think it is the lock that you do, that he's 1. But I do think it is a mortal lock that they are 1 and 2, because the value is in the quarterbacks. Now, I think there's a real chance Tennessee trades out of that spot. So that will become, to me, the real intrigue of the draft. Tampa will take one of them. And then Tennessee has the option of, you might get a king's ransom.
Well,
will you get an RG3S kind of deal?
That's exactly right.
For number 2?
If you want to see precedent there, that's exactly what you look at.
I'd be working that phone.
The Rams had the number 2 pick, and they traded RG3, and they got a king's ransom for it. So, the
only thing I'll say is here we are 3 years later, and they still need a quarterback.
Well, that's exactly right. So is that going to scare some people away?
Or will they be the one that go up and go to 2 and get the quarterback?
You use that king's ransom they got, use some of it, and go back and get a quarterback. So it will be interesting. So we do differ a little bit. And we'll see what happens.
And then there's Leonard Williams. If he's not 3, I don't know who is. The man is a hotel, and he ran a sub-5.
He's a big one. He's a big one. Now, when they showed on TV, the times they gave there were 5:01 and 5:00, but it turned out being the official was like a 4.97. So he's the first guy over 6'5", over 300 pounds, I think, in the last 10 combines to go sub-5. He's a heck of an athlete. He really is.
He's not a human being.
6'5".
For a person his size to run as fast as he does.
See, because you look at some of the other guys that the Shane Rays and those guys, the edge rushers in this draft, he's not. He's that true DN. You could slide him down in pass rushing situation, maybe make him a 3 as well, sitting at 290, because Aaron Donald, the kid from Pitt who went to the Rams, is not overly large. He was playing D tackle at 3, so Williams could go inside and do it as well.
Isn't he? I mean, I don't want to put over comparisons on the guy. J.J. Watt's the best player in the league.
From the point of versatility, the point of versatility, that's what that he is. He is more that D lineman and not that kind of specialty edge rusher type of guy that you saw with some of the guys that were weighing in at 245, 250, who, are going to have more of a trouble standing up to an O-line. But this kid, I'm with you. This kid's special.
Okay, that's enough time not talking about quarterbacks. Bill Polian.
Mariota's great athletically. He's got a great arm. I thought he threw the ball really well. The timing will come. That's just a matter of practice. In Jameis's case, just as Todd said, he threw it nice and easy, accurate, great ball. No residue left over from the supposed weakness in the shoulder. He passed all those tests.
I thought there was an incredible moment. Kurt Warner was down on the field. Obviously the NFL Network covering this. Kurt Warner was down, and they have their guys down on the field. As a matter of fact, when I was flying to Indianapolis, Chris and I, Willie McGinnis was on the flight working for the network, and he was going to go because linebackers were yesterday. So they have their guys right there. Michael Irvin was on the field with them, one of the wide receivers, and it gives great perspective.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready. They were throwing routes. And the one route was about a 10-yard and a 10-yard little curl, a little comeback, right? So 10-yard, and then they had 2 cones set up. The receiver would go past the first cone and come right back in between the two. Little 10, 12-yard, boom, little button hook, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
The back in the days on the backyard. So Jameis Winston was talking with Kurt Warner before that. And Kurt Warner, as they were getting ready to do that, Kurt Warner was talking about what they chatted about. And Winston was talking about throwing the ball hard in that situation because it was one of those you want to get the ball there. And Kurt Warner said, I have never one time can I think of in my career where I unleashed the ball trying to throw it as hard as I possibly could. He said, don't do that. He said, it's about timing and where you put the ball. He said, you don't have to throw it. Remember, Jameis Winston's a pitcher as well. So you don't have to throw it 98 miles an hour. Just time it right and put it where the guy can catch it, and that's as good as anything. And you saw that. Jameis Winston didn't try to just, put everything he could into it, and he threw great passes on that. And I thought it was really interesting about Kurt Warner saying that, because that's one of the nuances. There are times you think when you got to just, and there are times when you have to throw it a little harder. But I thought it was interesting that Kurt said, I've never unleashed one as hard as I possibly could. He relayed that to Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston took that and made great passes in that situation.
Jameis Winston is tremendous. I mean, watching Winston, and I put nothing in these. I am one. The combine to me is I'm hysterical laughing at sometimes at the coverage of it, and I think of you sometimes. I actually think of your father. Because I remember your father had the legendary line, when they put the bench press on the 50-yard line is the day I'll worry about that. I mean, I've got to think a lot of people could go out there in shorts and a T-shirt, as you said, and just throw the ball to people and look pretty good doing it.
That's exactly right.
But Winston, for whatever it's worth, you can't look the part any more than Winston looks the part of the guy who just stands back there and throws the football.
Here's what you get.
He looks better than Andrew Luck to me. I'm not saying he's a better prospect than Andrew Luck, because Luck had, all of this, whatever the other stuff that Luck seems to have he has. But as far as just purely throwing the ball, I think Winston just purely throws the ball better than Andrew Luck.
Here's what you look at when you're watching the Underwear Olympics. Is you just basically look for comfort.
What channel was that on?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I missed that.
That's what we're calling this. A lot of people call it the Underwear Olympics.
Sorry. I was watching the wrong stuff. I was watching the combine.
But it's how they look. Just a little nuance of Winston in a 5-step drop and Mariota in a 5-step drop. It's different. Mm-hmm. There's more comfort. You look at old linemen. You look at how at an ease they'll move their feet, use their hands. You look at an Amari Cooper. By the way, Kevin White from West Virginia is a freak athlete. He was about 215, 217. I think he ran a 4.3 40 or some ridiculous number like that. Caught the ball well. A lot of people have Cooper 1, Kevin White 2. There are some that have Kevin White 1, Amari Cooper 2. But you watch Amari Cooper. I'm talking about, again, in shorts. The ease of which he runs in and out of his route screening. He's an unbelievable route runner. And those are the little things you kind of, listen, you're going to watch film, and that's what you're going to base everything off of. But you got to watch something here. If they're going to do what you're watching it, you got to take something away from it. And that's what I look for, is how easy does it come to some of these guys? Their movements to where they're not even thinking about it. They're just doing it. And when they do it without thinking about it, they do it incredibly well. Because there's some old linemen, your feet are too wide, your feet are too narrow, the hands are moving all over the place. And there are some that are just dancing and punching like a boxer. Dancing and punching like a boxer. You could see wide receivers struggling getting out of breaks. Michael Irvin did a great job breaking that down. Amari Cooper just like it was nothing. Like he just woke up in the morning, ran an in route, and just broke like it was nothing. I mean, you could just tell those differences in situations like this.
Yes, the battle between the two receivers is going to be a very interesting one to watch. Because when that kid runs what did he run, a 4.3, whatever it was?
Was it a 4th? I mean, dude is freakish.
Yeah, so, I mean, all along I had thought that Amari Cooper was a lock to be the top receiver.
And he may be, because he's more polished.
Yeah.
He's definitely more polished in his route running.
But Mayock has him, too.
I know. Mayock has Kevin White number 1. Yeah. He absolutely does, and has Amari Cooper number 2. There could be 3. Devontae Parker, I think, is the 3rd one. You could have three of them going in the top 10.
Going to be very interesting. And again, we have extra time this year. The draft is not until the first couple of days of May, so we have a little extra time. That will actually be part now of what will be one of the most interesting sports weekends that we've had in a long time. Mm-hmm. With the announcement Friday night, by now, obviously, everyone is aware, the announcement that finally Pacquiao and Mayweather are going to fight. And the shame of it, there's a part of me that there was a little aggravation in me with the jubilation, just at the sport. You know, those of us who are old enough to remember a time when boxing occupied a place that it so seldom does. This is a fight that should have happened years ago.
That's exactly right.
Years ago. I'm still interested in it.
I am
I'll
too.
certainly watch it.
I am too, but not nearly as I was a few years ago.
No, this is a fight that should have happened years ago. And shame on everybody involved for it not. And the reality is that two people, one in particular, will make a killing on this thing. Mayweather will make all the money in the world. Pacquiao will make a lot of money. But just very little good will be done for the sport.
The sport,
which is, if they'd fought 5 years ago, it might have actually done some good for the sport.
That's exactly right. The sport has certainly been, you know, especially with MMA out, the sport had been taking a backseat to a lot of things. And if they had done this fight 4 or 5 years ago, it really could have helped the sport.
But as everyone is obviously by now aware, in that same weekend now, you're going to have the NFL draft. You're going to have Pacquiao Mayweather. You're going to have NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. The Kentucky Derby is that Saturday, and the Yankees and Red Sox are playing that weekend for what it's worth. So it is going to be an unbelievable sports weekend, no question about it.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike. You could win $1,000 in free gasoline from Exxon and Mobil just by telling us what fuels you and getting your friends to vote for your entry. It's the Exxon and Mobil What Fuels You contest. Rules and details at Exxon.com and Mobil.com.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Our NFL draft insider, Todd McShay, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, live from Indianapolis on the Scouting Combine, and you'll see him with live reports all day long on SportsCenter and NFL Live and everything else. And McShay, as I've been trying to tell Golick for years now, the only thing anyone cares about is quarterbacks. So let's obviously start with them. We've heard the raves about Winston and Mariota. And in your view, what will ultimately separate the two of them? Golick is convinced Winston is the number one pick, and that's it. I'm convinced Mariota still has a chance to be the number one pick. In your view, what will ultimately separate the two of them after they both look so good this weekend?
I think there is separation. I think that Jameis Winston is, to me at least, on the tape, there's a difference. You watch the pro-style system that he's in, you see the anticipation throws he has to make from inside the pocket. The accuracy, I just think he has natural accuracy making those anticipation throws. And then you come out and you watch him here from just the way he's carrying himself to all the other players flocking around him, and then the accuracy in all the drills and how easy the game comes to him. The only thing that can maybe bridge that gap of separation between now and the draft would be if more comes out, or when you go digging with, the private investigators and all the character issues and give him the psychological test to Jameis Winston. If something goes wrong in that regard, if there's more information that comes out for Tampa Bay at that number one pick, then I think Jameis Winston becomes the choice. There are a lot of people. Bill Polian said yesterday he thinks that Marcus Mariota will be the pick. Chris Mortensen said he thinks he's going to be the pick. But I think when you look at the evaluation between the two players on the field, Jameis Winston, in my opinion, is the better of the two.
Could not agree more. I think he's absolutely the number one pick. The question to me with Mariota is, and I think we all knew people were going to love his character, love talking to him, and he certainly threw well, as well. So the question to me is, a lot of your and Mel's mock draft had him 6 to the Jets. Do we think that upped it to whether to 2 at Tennessee, or maybe Tennessee trading that? Do we think Mariota helped himself to move up from 6?
I think he did help himself. Now, how much are you going to help yourself throwing with shorts and no defense? I mean, I don't know, but I do know in talking to people here, he really has been impressive during the meetings. And I think we expected that, but more than just the individual, the football IQ. I think with both of these quarterbacks, and the feedback I've gotten when I've talked to guys in the league that have interviewed both of these quarterbacks is that they're kind of blown away and that they're off the charts in terms of the football IQ. And then with Mariota, just the character and the way he carries himself as well. I think when you look at the leadership on the field and you look at the guy that enters the room in terms of, is everyone does he light up the room and does everyone want to be around this guy? It's Jameis. I think he has more of that personality, but Marcus is a guy that you want to rally around, does all the right things, is an absolute film junkie, and he wants to be great, and he has passion for the game like no other player probably in this draft. So I think he's been able to sell that, and teams have been able to pick that up while they're meeting with him for the 15 minutes and extra time.
Mike and McShay, understanding what the question marks are about Winston based on some of the issues, just throwing the football and as far as a pro-ready quarterback, I mean, watching this stuff, and you watch it with a different eye than I do, Todd, to me he looks better than Andrew Luck did at the same stage, just pure throwing of the football. Who was the last guy that you saw at this thing or as you went through the scouting process who came in as a better thrower of the football than Winston's coming in?
Andrew Luck would be the only one. I mean, if you're just grading off of what you see on tape, he'll have the second highest quarterback grade that I'll have given in the last 10 years. You know, you really look at it, just his anticipation, the accuracy, the way he can extend plays. I know he's not fast. We saw that. He didn't jump well. He didn't run well. Who cares? He extends plays with his strength, his anticipation, his feel inside the pocket, and I think that's what's special about him. He's a unique player. He has a little bit of that Ben Roethlisberger, and that, yes, he'll make a mistake here and there, but he's going to make many more big plays and extend plays without that speed and agility that some of the other quarterbacks in the league have.
So we have these two guys going in maybe the first 2 picks, but certainly in the first round. And then to me, tell me if I'm wrong, Todd, you have a group of 4. Garrett Grayson, the pro-style quarterback from Colorado State who didn't work out, had the hammy. Bryce Petty from Baylor, Sean Mannion from Oregon State, and Brett Hundley from UCLA. So that group of 4, who do you think is in line or maybe short enough outside of Grayson because he didn't work out there to maybe be that third guy, and can that third guy get into the first round?
I'm impressed, Golick. You got the whole list down. Garrett Grayson, I watched his tape this week a little bit more, and I have a lot more still to study on him. But I'm impressed with aspects of his game. I think his footwork is good. He's accurate throwing the ball. Does not have a big-time arm in terms of driving the ball outside the numbers and down the field. But he has a chance to emerge as the third quarterback taken. But this is as big a drop-off as I can remember in terms of the top quarterbacks and then that second tier. I mean, in reality, I know they'll get pushed up because they're quarterbacks, but in reality, you're talking about maybe third, fourth round grades, probably third round grades in terms of that next group when you get into Grayson and Hundley and all the other quarterbacks that you mentioned. But it's going to be a big drop off. So that makes it more intriguing too, because if you're a team right now, obviously Tampa Bay, Tennessee, New York Jets at 6, Cleveland Browns, what's their situation? Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you go down the list, Houston Texans. If you're in need of a quarterback and you don't get one of the top 2, then it's find a veteran or draft one later in the draft, but you're really only drafting that third, fourth round quarterback thinking he's going to become a backup for you and a solid backup down the line.
Mike and Todd McShay, give us then, for those who didn't follow it closely over the weekend, you couldn't miss the quarterbacks, you couldn't miss the kid from West Virginia who ran the lightning fast time, Kevin White.
Right.
In your view, what else, give us a thumbnail on the stuff this weekend that football fans should be aware of, the things that really mattered that happened at the Combine this weekend.
Well, first of all, how about Amari Cooper, the Alabama wide receiver, most polished receiver in this draft, NFL ready, sudden route runner, big-time playmaker. Comes out 6'1", 210 pounds, runs a 4.43. You think, all right, great. You know, it's done. He should be done for the day. He should be the first receiver taken. Then Kevin White comes out at almost 6'3", 215 pounds, and runs a 4.35 in the 40-yard dash, and just is off the charts in terms of everything that he did. So that's going to be an interesting competition, and I think the Oakland Raiders sitting at number 4 is kind of the spot that we could see that first receiver off the board. But you've got White, you've got Cooper, Devontae Parker from Louisville, all could be in that top 10, 12 picks of this year's draft. And I think the other thing that really stood out to me, the pass rushers, the defensive linemen. Leonard Williams obviously is not an edge rusher, the USC defensive end, defensive tackle, but he shows up at 6'4.5" and 302 pounds and runs a sub 5-second 40-yard dash. You're talking about a rare combination of height, weight, speed, and his tape backs it up as well. I think he's got a chance to be, if not the second pick, maybe the third overall pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then the pass rushers I mentioned, of them, I think Vic Beasley from Clemson was the most impressive. He came in at 246, which is a lot bigger than we expected. He has the quickest first step of any defensive lineman that I've evaluated so far this year, and you saw that in his workout, a 1.59 in his 10-yard split, which is the most predictive of all of these results in terms of NFL success. Also had a 41-inch vertical, and this guy is explosive. I think he locked down a spot somewhere in that, I don't know, maybe 15, 20, 25 range of the first round.
He is Todd McShay, again, live reports all day on SportsCenter, NFL Insiders at 3:30 Eastern, NFL Live at 4 Eastern, and a whole lot more. Thank you, McShay.
All right, thanks, fellas.
The best of Mike and Mike.
And I've got Jeff Van Gundy on my side. Good job by the crew. They got the video, or the audio, more importantly, from the game on Friday night. I'll play it for you in a minute. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. So many different things going on a given day, and obviously a lot of the attention this weekend being paid, first off, I guess, to the Oscars.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I was happy that Birdman won, as I said, because of the big movies, of the ones anyone said had a chance. It was the only one I saw, and I really liked it. I really wanted Michael Keaton to win, because he's an actor that I've liked for a long time.
It's our wheelhouse, him, yeah.
Well, he made 2 great movies.
Gung Ho and Mr. Mom.
I don't even remember Gung Ho. And Mr. Mom is an eminently forgettable movie.
So you're thinking about different movies?
Night Shift?
I know. I'm just
and Johnny Dangerously.
Yeah.
Johnny Dangerously is a classic. I will fight you on Johnny Dangerously.
Yeah, I'm not going classic.
Fight you.
No.
We will fight on Johnny Dangerously.
I look forward to the fight.
That's a great movie.
Okay. It's a really good movie.
And obviously he's made a ton of huge movies.
Yeah,
Beetlejuice and Batman and
yeah.
Also, and that's one of the ironies of the movie Birdman. But whatever. That's neither here nor there. So that was the Oscars. But then everyone else talking about the Combine. And, I think that what came out of the Combine is exactly what was expected, which is Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota are going to be the first 2 picks in this draft. Jameis Winston is the better prospect immediately. My only question is, will Tampa have enough concern about the off-the-field potential questions and look at Mariota and say that rookie year, Winston's much more ready to play, but 3 years from now, and when you draft a quarterback at the top of the draft, you're thinking in decades. Not in years. 3 years from now, Mariota's going to be just as good, if not better, because of his athleticism and all the rest of that, and he'll pick up the offense and all that. So I still think there's a chance Mariota goes number 1. I think there's almost no chance they don't go 1, 2 in either order.
I think Winston goes number 1 without question. To me, done deal. I think the bigger of the 2 questions is, does Mariota go number 2? Or does he go later than that, maybe as far as 6, either the Jets or somebody moving up? I think if you go... Did the weekend say Mariota 2, 6, or lower? I would say more 2, whether it's Tennessee or whether they want to trade the pick. But I'm not as sold as I am that Jameis Winston is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. I think he is absolutely going to be the number 1 pick. He's going to be faced Tampa Bay. That's who Lovie Smith is going to take. And then we'll see with Mariota. Does he go 2? Does someone trade there? Does Tennessee take him? Or does he fall a little bit? But they both did exactly what I thought they would do in this Combine.
Some of the reaction on Twitter this morning, Will McClung, Winston will go number 1. Mariota will go second to the Eagles via trade with the Titans.
That's a move. 20-2. 20-2. Think about what the Washington Redskins gave up to go to 2 to the Rams when they got RG3. That was a king's ransom, and it certainly has not paid off for Washington at this point. So you have to definitely give up a lot. And I would imagine part of that would be a quarterback on their roster already, like a Nick Foles, if they were to do that. But you would be giving up an awful lot.
Dom Colicchio tweets at us, where do you see Brett Hundley going in the draft? There is a group of 4 who come after the top 2. And if you were not with us about 40 minutes ago, we had Todd McShay on suggesting that while they may get inflated, or whatever the word is.
That's what it is. It's
because the quarterback value.
It does. It magnifies.
He thinks that they will at best have third round grades.
3rd round or lower grades on them, but the question is, will one of them get grabbed at the end of the 1st round? And then, who gets taken in the 2nd round? There's 4. There's Brett Hundley from UCLA, and he was the one who was out of the group of Mariota, Winston, Sean Mannion, Bryce Petty. They all threw in the same group. Garrett Grayson from Colorado State, another pro-style quarterback, he didn't throw because he had a hammy. So he didn't throw, but he certainly let all the teams interviewing him know that, and they knew it, that what style of quarterback he was. So to me, that's an interesting race for number 3. And who will be number 3, and when will number 3 be taken? Because you're talking about at least 4 guys there, and that's always the fun. Who hits in the later rounds? From the 2nd round. I remember Michael Irvin saying, I think this kid's going to be a great later round pick. And Mike Mayock was saying, well, wait a minute, I have him with a 2nd round grade. And Irvin's like, anything outside the 1st round's a later round to me. I'm like, okay, understood, coming from the Hall of Fame wide receiver. I get it. But that's the thing. There are a group of quarterbacks who don't have the 1st round grade and won't have a 1st round grade. But I'd say at least one of them is probably going to be way better than we thought. And just who will it be in that group?
We are Mike and Mike. A lot of people, by the way, are sending me A movie I had forgotten to mention. Shame on me. Great movie. Another one's not that well remembered. Michael Keaton movie, Pacific Heights. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah,
that is a scary movie where he moves into the house that they refurbish.
Oh, yeah.
That's an intense
psycho
movie.
there, yeah.
He's a good actor.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
I would like to have seen him win. Okay, let's get to now why Jeff Van Gundy is my hero.
Mm-hmm.
If you were listening here on Friday morning when Danny Cannell was in, and I initially enlisted Danny's help to be on a committee, I asked him to chair the committee. I have subsequently removed not only his chairmanship, but I have thrown him off the committee. I want a committee to look into ways to change the Hack a DeAndre rule, which I think is just the worst thing in the sport, in basketball. I'm a fan of the game, and there needs to be some way to get around this. But I said at the time, I wasn't willing to go nearly far enough, it turned out. I said at the time, look, if I were Greg Popovich, I'd do the same thing he's doing. I'd foul intentionally all the time, put the guy on the line. He was 10 of 28 from the line, and all of that. So I understand the strategy. Then that night, Friday night, I'm watching the Cavs and the Wizards, and Cleveland was opening up a can, by the way, on the road.
Yeah.
And there's a play where, by the way, LeBron James so blatantly traveled. I mean, it was hilarious, literally hilarious. And it's not called.
Right.
And Mike Breen is pointing out how it wasn't called. And Van Gundy, as only Van Gundy can, sort of brushes that off and goes an entirely other direction. This was the moment Friday night.
Look, if we couldn't call every travel in the NBA, it would almost be as boring of a game as the hack of DeAndre from the last couple of national TV games. And I was telling you this today, and I really believe it. Adam Silver today should say the rule changes starting tomorrow. I'm not asking the teams. I don't care what they say. And if they try to vote against me, then I'm going to make their schedule miserable next year. They'll play 47 back-to-back games.
That was Van Gundy. And I stood and applauded.
Yeah.
I'm on my couch by myself in my house, and I'm standing, and I'm cheering, and I'm applauding, and I'm tweeting my support for Jeff Van Gundy, who is now chairing my committee. He will join us live tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, to expound upon this.
Give me some numbers. Give me some numbers.
Define numbers. He shot 10 of 28
No,
from the
I know
line.
what his numbers are. How many other where is this happening? How many other teams is it happening to? What other players is it happening to? Is it happening?
Well, they used to hack a Shaq.
Oh, I know that. I'm talking about the game now. I'm not talking about years ago. I'm not going to. If this is really the only thing that's going on with DeAndre Jordan, I'm not interested in changing a rule for one guy. Shoot your free throws, okay? I'm not changing the rule. Wait a minute. You're so inefficient at this, and teams are taking advantage of that we are going to change the rule because you stink at doing this.
Yeah.
How dumb does that sound?
It doesn't. And I'll tell you why.
Ridiculous.
Because we change rules based upon what the fans want all the time. Those two teams could easily play in a playoff series. Right? Easily could meet in a playoff series this year. Or more to the point, the Clippers are going to play someone in the playoffs.
Yeah, they are.
Right? And no one wants to watch that.
Okay.
No one wants to watch
Whose fault is that?
Well, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say it's Jordan's fault.
Yes,
it is. Foul shot.
Yes.
But I got a couple of suggestions here.
Okay.
How about this? How about Cameron tweets, here's a solution. Each player can only be fouled 6 times in a game. Each one after that, if he is fouled, then someone else can shoot the foul shots. No. How about this one?
No.
How about, like football, a team can decline.
I saw that. That was kind of interesting.
That's from Green King 1300.
Decline that. We'll just take the ball.
Hack a Shack like football. A team can decline the free throws, but the foul still counts. Give the team the option, problem solved. And then they'll stop doing it because you're going to put the team in the penalty, and then they're just going to keep inbounding the ball. And all that would be a really minimal
at least
way
that
to go
is the
about
least invasive where, you know what, you're not going to do that because you're right. All of a sudden you're going to be in the penalty. You're going to have not gained anything for that. So that's one I could at least see.
I think that's an excellent one.
I like that one.
I think I'm going to adopt this.
But do you only make that for that one, or can you decline any foul?
Well, I guess you can make it where you could decline any foul. I mean, I don't know what
you see the NBA ref said now, charge or whatever,
decline the penalty. Well, you would decline. What would you decline? The foul shots.
Yeah,
that's what you're declining. The penalty would, the foul would still count.
The foul would still count. Yeah. So you're declining the foul shots is what you're doing.
No, I'm just trying to think where that would come in as a problem. In late game situations where team are trying to foul you to keep you from being able to get up a 3, they're going to foul you so you can only shoot 2. You could decline
that so you can still get a chance. That would be interesting.
You see Greg Popovich over there, we're going to decline the penalty.
That foul.
I mean, it sounds ludicrous. I understand.
It does, but you know what? At least it's the least invasive of some of the other things we're talking about.
Guys who've been hacked, Wilt Chamberlain, Dennis Rodman, Dwight Howard, Ben Wallace, Bruce Bowen, Rajon Rondo
Shaq,
briefly in the playoffs, Shaq, and now DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah. Okay. So you've listed in the last how many decades about 6 people. Okay,
but that's okay.
Oh, it is?
You can make a rule to keep that from happening to 6 people.
It better be a very...
Because those 6 people play all the time. It's not like it's one game.
Okay.
It's 82 games.
I'm with you. I'm not with you. Make your free throws.
I want to see a change. Again, Jeff Van Gundy is now the leader of my movement.
Yeah.
And
he's going to be real happy about that. I bet he changes his tune by tomorrow.
He will not.
Yeah.
He's going to be on my side, and we'll see who else is. Dan Le Batard is going to jump in, joining us in 1 minute.
Mike and Mike.
Live from sunny South Florida. And I say that with a tone of aggravation because it is going to be -6
yes,
here.
It is.
Have you seen that? -6.
Yeah, it's going to be a bad low tonight.
It's never -6 in Miami, and that's where we find our friend Dan Le Batard on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Good morning, Dan.
-6?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
People live
-6.
in that? People live in -6?
Not really, no. People suffer in -6.
We hibernate.
It's just the pits. And however bad you think it sounds, it's actually worse. Quickly, but before we get to the topics that we really want to get to with you, I'm heavy on this thing here, this hacka DeAndre, hacka whomever. Jeff Van Gundy was saying the other night, we need to change this rule, get it out of there. Golick says, make your foul shots. I say, I don't care what you have to do, but find a way to get that out of the game because it's just excruciating to watch. Dan Le Batard, what say you?
Well, the consumer doesn't like that. We don't have consensus on very much in sports, but you're not going to get anybody to argue on behalf of the merits of watching that. So Adam Silver does the popular things. Right now, Adam Silver has proven himself to be the commissioner, whether it's gambling or banning Donald Sterling, who will do the things that the people want. So I suspect that they'll change that rule very quickly because you don't have anyone arguing for it. So I'm sure that soon Adam Silver will fix that.
It's interesting you bring that up, and I wasn't planning to go there, but because you mentioned it, I'm just curious your take. Gambling in sports, to me, it's not even worth discussing. Everyone knows that there are hundreds of millions of dollars that are wagered illegally in this country. That's not changing no matter what you do. I personally don't see anything that should be standing in the way of legalizing sports gambling, and I can see enormous benefit that could potentially come from it. Well, what is your thought on something that's been an issue forever and I've never understood?
Well, you've seen what's happened with marijuana in this country and how much that has changed over the last 10 years. And the reason it has changed is because you've got a subtle push from people who say they want to do it. But on top of that, you've got a lot of people who weren't profiting off of something that's easy to profit off. So all Adam Silver's doing is saying, well, wait a minute. If you guys are going to do this anyway, if everyone's going to be doing this, how about we get a cut? How about we get in on this? And so it makes sense because, you know, we haven't talked about this when it comes to football. Football for a long time has sort of separated itself, doesn't speak out loud on the idea that it's popular, at least in part, because so many people are gambling on it. So if that's the case, why wouldn't the commissioner figure out a way to get in on some of that money? It makes perfect sense.
So now to the team where you are in Miami, the Heat. After the trades they made, they thought maybe this could be a team that could do something in the playoffs. So you can touch on that. But most importantly, first, Chris Bosh and having to miss the rest of the season with the blood clots in the lungs and just the thought of losing him to something like that.
Well, you guys have gotten to know Chris Bosh. He's genuine. He's authentic. We've created a climate in sports where it doesn't serve the athlete to be honest, because we will take his honesty and we will turn it into something that we can argue about. And so athletes just try not to say anything. I have on a number of occasions thanked Chris Bosh after talking to him for being the way that he is, just because he doesn't mind being publicly vulnerable. He's hugely introspective and doesn't mind giving you what he's feeling, even if, people can judge it and then call him soft and sensitive and all those things. And so you won't hear anybody say a negative word about Chris Bosh. And it was pretty crushing for the Miami Heat fan base to go very quickly. It felt like that Cleveland Browns thing where they draft Johnny Manziel and, an hour later Josh Gordon is done for the year. The Miami Heat get Goran Dragic, and then they feel like a team that might be able to matter the rest of the season. And then not only do they, basically have their season ended less than 24 hours later, but with a player that everybody likes as a person.
Mike and Dan Lebitard, who hosts his show here on ESPN Radio starring Stu Gatz every single day. I love to have Stu Gatz tweeted the Larry O'Brien trophy when that trade was made. And so then that now leads you to the next question about them, which is how much confidence is there in Miami? And if you directly commented on this over the weekend, I apologize I didn't see it, that Dragic is going to stay long-term. He had identified the Heat as one of 3 places that he'd be interested in going, and now they have the bird right, so they have everything going for them. How confident are you, how confident are the Heat that he's now going to be theirs going forward?
Well, his representatives have told him that this is where they want to be. What was interesting about what Pat Riley did with that trade is when Chris Bosh was healthy and fine, that was a good trade even if Dragic didn't re-sign. Because they gave up so little. They gave up so very little in pieces that nobody really wanted. That would have been a trade that would have been good just for this year if you get to keep Dragic for just this year. But now that Bosh is gone, you can't say that anymore because of the 2 first-round picks. But they think they're going to keep him. He wants to be here. And as you said, this is not a small thing. Pat Riley gets a lot of credit for doing amazing things, and he has done amazing things. You can make the argument. You can have a conversation about whether he's as good as a general manager as he was as a coach. But what helps him sell it is that it's -6 today in Bristol, Connecticut, and these guys want to play by the beach. They want to be here. It's very comfortable to be able to ride your bike into work in February.
I would agree. It's an extraordinary recruiting advantage. Mike and Dan Lebitard. I want to phrase the next question to you the following way: which of the two, and you were perfectly willing to answer neither, was of more interest to you this weekend? The NFL Combine or the Oscars?
Yeah, neither is the one that I would go with. The Combine, when it comes to the Combine, I just prefer that people tell me what it is that happened at the Combine than to watch anything. But even there, what was the interesting thing to come from the Combine? Was there anything at all? Anything?
The quarterbacks threw well.
Okay.
That's pretty much the headline, Dan. Some guys ran really fast.
Yeah, some really good athletes out there.
Yeah, some guys were really fast runners.
I liked Birdman. I thought it deserved what it got. I thought it's very rare you go to the movie theater and you see something you've never seen before, and that movie was kind of a masterpiece. So I guess the Oscars would be my answer.
Have you seen a lot of the movies that were up for Best Picture?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did not. The only one I saw was Birdman, and that's why I was rooting for it. But did you think it was the best movie of the movies that were up?
Well, the thing about Birdman that I saw, and I don't know if this is a controversy at all, it's unlike any movie I've ever seen. I've never, to walk into a theater in 2015 and see something that you've never seen before, and to have it be, to have the writing be exceptional, to have the acting be exceptional, to have the cinematography be something that you've never seen before, to have it be, an artistic work that's layered. I don't throw loosely around the phrase masterpiece, but it not only was it a masterpiece, it's, to me, in terms of a viewing experience, it was kind of unprecedented.
And I wanted Michael Keaton to win largely because, and I'm curious to know, do you remember the movie Johnny Dangerously?
Barely. You're going to have to help me there.
Oh, that's so disappointing. Yeah. See, it is the most underappreciated. It is the Elvin Hayes of great comedies. No one ever talks about it when they talk about great comedies, but Johnny Dangerously, to me, is Michael Keaton's finest work. I think that's his masterpiece. As good as Birdman was, I enjoyed Batman, Beetlejuice, name whatever you want, Night Shift. To me, he was at his very best in the movie Johnny Dangerously, and no one remembers it except for me.
You're the only one. Michael Keaton, I believe someone asked him about it last night. He doesn't remember doing it. He just thinks that you remember doing it. He himself doesn't remember anything about that.
I lean more to Mr. Mom, but that's just me. I want to leave you with this. The Combine, we joke around about the shorts and the T-shirt, but the conversation is who goes number one, Winston or Mariota. So just through the season to knowing things that have gone on off the field and the personalities of both players, who would you take as your quarterback?
Well, I talked to Joey Galloway about this the other day, and I'm with him on this, in that we don't understand why Mariota's in the conversation with Winston when it comes to just watching him and what you know about pro skill sets. To me, I get the idea of character being important, but it's not as important as skill set. And to me, one of those guys is very obviously a pro quarterback, and the other one might be. So, I would take Winston. I do want to ask you guys this, though, because I bet Joey Galloway this the other day. He's 43 years old, and he says he can still run a sub 4.3. I should put a wager on this because I don't believe him. He thinks he can still run, and he says he's training for it, and he's got huge confidence about it, that he could run a 4.29 40 at 43 years old. Do you guys believe him?
No, I don't think. No, I would take that bet against it without question. I think he could still run it fast, but I don't think he's going under a 4.3. No.
Well, I bet him $5,000 because I don't believe it either. But he scared me because of how confident he is. Because I'm saying, Joey, you could show up at the combine and you could place a bag over your head, and if no one knows that it's you, you'd be drafted if you running a 4.29.
Well, there too is the difference, I guess, of our salaries. You bet him $5,000. I was talking about a $10 bet. All of a sudden, it's $5,000. What are we doing here?
No, but I only made it $5,000 because I don't believe it's possible that someone who's 43 years old can run a 4.29.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And I don't think that's money that's ever going to leave my bank account.
That's true. I would agree. Yeah.
It's the Dan Le Batard Show every weekday afternoon here on ESPN Radio, and do not miss Highly Questionable with Dan and Bomani and Poppy every weekday, 4 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. Dan, enjoy the weather down there. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
No, with good reason.
No, he's not sorry.
It's as bad. No,
he's not
It's
sorry.
as bad as you think it is. I texted him the last time I was in town.
Horrible.
I was in Miami in December, and I just texted him, and I said, I just want, I'm sitting here, and it's, I forget what, it was like 72 degrees and sunny. And I texted Dan, and he said, that's why very few people leave here.
Let me tell you what, that's why I'm going. I was in Arizona for most of the week. It was 80 degrees every day. It was absolutely beautiful. Joey Galloway in a 4.29 40.
What did he run at the combine? Like, what did Joey at his fastest? We'll look that up.
Yeah.
Is Chris Johnson still? Was he the fastest?
4.24. Today's the last day. You got more of the cornerback. You'll see if anybody can challenge his 4.24. I think there was one player that got in the 4.2s, but Chris Johnson's still the best at 4.24.
The best of Mike and Mike.
I tell you, as we approach our 15th anniversary celebration, this was a staple for many years when this man was the quarterback of the New York Jets. Pleased to welcome back on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, no longer, I think, the possessor of any sort of restraining order against me.
No, I think that is cleared, yes. Yeah.
Here's Chad Pennington with us on Mike and Mike. How have you been, Chad?
Doing great, Mike. Memories, I'll tell you, those are some good memories.
I hope you meant more about memories of you playing than Greeny actually having a song for you.
Well, it was actually refreshing knowing somebody liked what you did, for a while, because when you're playing in a pressure cooker like New York, you kind of think everybody's against you sometimes.
Well, those were the days. And Chad, we're chatting this morning because you were down there on the field with the quarterbacks of the combine. So quickly, before we get to the specifics, what was your role? I find it fascinating how they bring former NFL guys down there. What was specifically your role designed to be down there? And I'm curious to know, what kinds of questions did you get from the quarterbacks that were down there? What sorts of things did they want to know from you?
Sure. It was an initiative through the NFL Legends community, which comes straight from the commissioner's office, and with the commissioner and Troy Vincent and Tracy Perlman, they've done a great job of engaging our former players and trying to reach out to them. We've been trying to build those former player relationships, and this initiative was being able to match former players with groups of current players going through the combine, to where we could share our combine experiences with them, as well as share our NFL experiences. So we had expectations meetings with them, and then I was with a group of wide receivers and quarterbacks on the field as they were going through their drills, and just talking with them and watching them go through their drills.
In your eyes, what can you gain from the quarterback position at a combine when they're in shorts and a T-shirt? What can you see that can maybe give you an aha moment, if you can?
Well, I think physically you're just looking to make sure that they have a good, legitimate, solid foundation and base, fundamentally. I don't think you can truly tell what type of passer they are, because, like I was talking with one NFL coach, some of the drills that we're having them go through as far as the passing drills, they're not necessarily realistic. They're throwing an in route at 18 yards and the ball's only getting 8 feet up off the ground. Well, that's not realistic, because you have to throw over linebackers and into holes and into pockets and things like that. But so you're just kind of looking at just their overall makeup, how they move, how they throw. Do they have a nice solid foundation? And I think more or less it's just about being around those players and seeing what they're made of mentally and trying to just dive in and talk to them about some football things to gather some information.
Mike and former NFL quarterback Chad Pennington, who's here, was part of the proceedings during the combine, was down there on the field. So people emerged extraordinarily impressed with Jameis Winston. Specifically, what did you see from him?
Well, I think there's no question that he has the passing ability. He's a true pocket passer. You know that he's coming from a pro-style system where he can absorb volumes of information and be able to make reads and pre-snap reads and post-snap reads and things like that. So you have that going for him. My advice would be to show my confidence in the classroom, show my confidence on the board, letting coaches know what I know, that I do know how to operate an offense, that I know what everyone's responsibilities, including mine, are. And then in my interviews with the media, I'm just trying to be gracious and humble and show humility and not worry about that. Just really focus on the confidence on the board to where they know that I know what I'm talking about.
And then with Marcus Mariota, he's a guy that everybody thought would score very high off the field, but there was going to be a lot of scrutiny on the field to footwork, actually 5-step drop. So what did you see out of him from the technical aspect?
Well, technically, he still has a good, solid foundation. His throwing motion is fine. He has a good, solid foundation to work with. You know he's athletically inclined, so that's certainly an upside. I think with Marcus and quarterbacks coming from spread systems, you really have to dive in and find out, can they absorb information? Will they be able to process that information and not just be a pre-snap read guy or a one-read guy? I think that's the biggest challenge for him, to be able to prove to the scouts that he can do that, even though maybe his college system didn't allow him to do that a lot. He does have the capability, and he's smart enough to do that, which I think he is.
Talking to Chad Pennington, former NFL quarterback, on the field when Mariota and Winston and the other quarterbacks out there and wide receivers were going through their drills. How about, and you can only catch some of this on TV, but you were down there, how about away from actually throwing the ball? It seemed like their personalities kind of showed what they were. Jameis seemed to be high-fiving everybody and talking more, and Mariota seems to be more of that quiet leader. Is that what you saw as well, just in that short time?
So there's no question there is a difference in personalities. Marcus is a little bit more quiet, goes about his business, but very respectful, asked questions, was very engaging. Jameis is a little bit more out in front, kind of the rah-rah-ree guy, but he's also engaging as well. He asked some really good questions in our expectations meeting. Both of them were very respectful, wanted some insight on just how to be a professional and some of the things that would be important for them to focus and concentrate on. They certainly have different styles, though. There's no question about that. Mike
and Chad Pennington, who was a first-round draft pick of the New York Jets once upon a time. Well, let me ask you this. You were a guy who was known as being very cerebral. You were almost a Rhodes Scholar, and so that was the strength of it. But of your game, and Mariota, everyone says extremely smart and all the rest of that. But if you haven't played in a pro-style offense, realistically speaking, no matter how smart you are, how quickly do you think someone can pick that up? If you are not accustomed to doing it when the bullets are flying, how long realistically do you think it takes for a person to become comfortable doing that, running a pro-style offense from the time they come into the NFL?
Well, I've always said for quarterbacks in general, a 3 to 5 year process is necessary regardless. Just learning how to be a pro, number one, learning how to absorb information, know how to set your time and your time management and your schedules, and trying to get better, that is paramount, I think, for a quarterback's development. That's why I think it's so important that these organizations really try to be patient and do it correctly. There's so many quarterbacks that have a chance if you do it correctly. And even for me, coming from Marshall, I had a great system to work in, but even I had an adjustment because we were typically more one-back, and I went through a team at the time that was using more two-back, so I had to learn what defenses look like from a two-back perspective versus a one-back perspective. So there's an adjustment regardless from what system you come from.
And you didn't play immediately coming in. Vinny Testaverde was the starter for the Jets. These days, a lot of guys are coming in, and they are, Jameis Winston realistically is going to be the starting quarterback from day one of training camp. Do you think overall, in the big picture of the NFL, that's a bad idea?
Most of the time, yes. I think the quarterbacks that have had success early on are quarterbacks that came into a situation where they did not have to be the X factor. They did not have to be the guy to win the game. They had solid defenses, and they also had solid pros on the offensive side that can make those plays and they were just asked to make one or two plays at a time, whether it be Andrew Luck in his first couple of years or Joe Flacco, even back to Tom Brady during the first couple of Super Bowl years. He was the guy that just had to make some plays at the end to get the team over the hump, but they were a defensive-minded team that played very sound fundamentally.
How different can it be? And I know it's got to be tough to quantify to answer to them. You know, you're in the first round in 2000 before all the social media is going on, and they're going to be the face of a franchise in 2015, of just how different in a 15-year span, which quite honestly is just a blink of an eye of how different it is to be that top-pick quarterback now.
Well, it's completely different, Mike. I think, with the entertainment, the difference is the entertainment value that has been brought to the game, which is a good thing, but it can also be a distraction for our young players, and they forget about this is still about the game, and it's still about how you perform. And your brand has nothing to do with your Twitter followers and your Facebook and all your social media. Your brand is about how you perform on that field. And if you perform well on the field, your brand will take care of itself.
We will always love Chad Pennington on this show. It's always a pleasure to talk football. Good to hear your voice again,
Thanks,
Chad.
Chad.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Chad Pennington is a terrific guy and was a very good player.
And I like what they're doing. I like the initiative of putting former players down on the field with these guys and having meetings with them and just talking with them. I think that's a great idea. And because I know back in the day, as they say, guys coming into the league, they actually valued what older players had to say. And I think some of that is lost. And I hope some of that comes back where they can really offer some guidance, and hopefully the players of today will listen a little bit to that.
Coming up next, the two words that Marcus Mariota doesn't want to listen to. I'll say them next. Mike and Mike.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike. What fuels you? Here's Kim going downtown for a dance class. Going to her daughter's soccer game.
Come on, Katie, you can do it! Woo-hoo!
Kim fuels up at Exxon and Mobil stations, where our quality gasoline helps improve fuel economy, and where she could win $1,000 in free Exxon Mobil gift cards just by telling us what fuels her, like dance class or her kids. 10 weekly winners. Full details at Exxon.com or Mobil.com. Exxon and Mobil. Energy lives here.
No purchase necessary. Ends April 7, 2015. Restrictions apply. Actual fuel economy benefits may vary.